The most dangerous moment in a toxic relationship is not when things are at their worst, but the moment you finally start to pull away. Not because you did something wrong, not because you failed, but because for the first time, you are no longer easy to control. And the second that happens, something shifts. The mask slips. The version of them you were used to, the predictable one, it disappears. And what replaces it is something far more calculated, far more intentional. Most people expect that once they set boundaries or walk away, things will calm down, that the conflict will fade, that distance will bring peace. But with toxic people, the opposite often happens. Things don't get quieter, they get more confusing, more intense. Because when control is threatened, they don't give up. They adapt. They change tactics. They come back in ways you don't expect, using strategies designed not to fix the relationship, but to pull you back into it. And here's the part that catches almost everyone off guard. By the time they switch their approach, you're already exhausted. You've spent so long trying to make things work, trying to understand, trying to hold everything together, that your energy is low and your clarity is fading. You start second-guessing yourself. You wonder if you were too harsh, too distant, too unfair. That confusion isn't accidental, it's exactly what they rely on. Because toxic dynamics are not random, they are patterns. Every reaction, every sudden change in behavior, every emotional shift is aimed at one thing: regaining control, not rebuilding trust, not growing together, just control. So if you've ever walked away from someone and instead of feeling free, everything suddenly became more complicated, more emotional, more overwhelming, this is why. What you're about to see are the 5 most common things toxic people do the moment they realize you're no longer easy to control. And once you see these patterns clearly, they lose their power over you forever. One of the most deceptive tactics a toxic person uses when they feel you pulling away is something that, on the surface, looks like everything you ever wanted. Suddenly, they become softer, kinder, more attentive. They start saying the right things, doing the right things, and showing up as the exact version of themselves you once begged to see. They ask how you're doing and actually listen. They remember small details. They act like the person you believed they could be all along. And for a moment, it works. You feel that warmth again. That familiar hope starts to rise. A quiet voice inside you whispers, maybe they've changed, maybe this time it's real. After all the distance, all the pain, all the effort it took to step back, this version of them feels like proof that it was all worth it. That maybe you just needed to hold on a little longer. But this is where the illusion begins to crack. Because real change doesn't arrive suddenly, perfectly timed the moment you start leaving. Real change is slow, consistent, and visible even when there is nothing to gain from it. It doesn't appear overnight, and it doesn't disappear the moment you let your guard down. What you're seeing here is not transformation, it's strategy. In psychology, this is known as love bombing, but in simple terms, it is emotional bait. Carefully designed, perfectly delivered, and aimed directly at the part of you that still wants to believe. So instead of getting lost in how it feels, pause and ask yourself one simple question: why now? Where was this version of them when you were hurting? Where was this effort when you were asking, waiting, hoping? The timing tells you everything. Because if the change only appears when you walk away and fades the moment you come back, then it was never real change at all. It was just a more effective way to bring you back under control. When a toxic person realizes they can no longer reach you directly, they don't simply stop, they go around you. At first, you may not even notice it. Things feel quieter. You finally have space to breathe. But then, slowly, something starts to feel off. A friend mentions a conversation that doesn't quite sound right. A family member asks you a strange question. Someone you trust says, "I heard something about you," and suddenly, you realize a narrative is being built behind your back. They begin to tell their version of the story, one where you are the one who changed, the one who gave up, the one who is difficult or untrustworthy. Not loudly, not in a direct confrontation, but quietly, strategically, piece by piece. This is how they work when they can't control you face to face. If the front door is closed, they look for a side entrance. And in relationships, that side door is always the people around you. The goal is simple but powerful: isolation. Because the more doubt they can plant in your circle, the more alone you begin to feel. And when you feel alone, when you feel misunderstood, you become more vulnerable. You start questioning your own reality. You start wondering if maybe they're right. And in that weakened state, pulling you back becomes much easier. But here is the truth you need to hold on to. A person who genuinely cares about you will never use others to pressure or manipulate you. They will come to you directly, with honesty and respect. So when this happens, don't panic. Don't rush to defend yourself to everyone. Stay grounded, stay consistent. Keep living in alignment with who you truly are. Because, in the end, you don't need to fight every false story. Your reality, lived clearly and calmly, will expose the truth on its own. After the big gestures fail and the emotional pull doesn't work anymore, a toxic person often becomes much quieter but not weaker. Instead of coming at you directly, they start small. So small that it almost feels harmless. A short message to check in. A tiny favor that seems too insignificant to refuse. A casual reference to something from your past, just to see how you react. On the surface, each action looks innocent. But beneath it, something very deliberate is happening. They are testing your boundaries. Not in one big move, but step by step. First, they observe how quickly you reply. Then, how willing you are to engage. Then, how much access you still allow them into your time, your thoughts, your emotions. And if you give in even just a little, they take note. They don't rush. They don't push too hard. They simply come back again, slightly further this time, then again, and again, until one day, without ever making a clear decision to let them back in, you realize they are already there. This is why this tactic is so effective. Because we are wired to overlook small things. We tell ourselves, it's not a big deal, or I don't want to overreact. And that reasonable thinking becomes the very thing that is used against us. Because in this dynamic, small things are never just small. Every small allowance sends a signal. It tells them there is still a gap in your boundary. So here is the insight you need to hold on to. Small things are big things in disguise. Holding your ground on something minor is not being difficult, it is protecting your space. Because the moment you allow the small to pass unchecked is the moment the door quietly opens again. One of the most unsettling tactics a toxic person uses doesn't look aggressive on the surface, but it cuts deeper than almost anything else. It begins with the very things you once trusted them with. The moments you were vulnerable, the fears you admitted, the mistakes you shared honestly, believing you were safe. Instead of protecting those parts of you, they store them, and later, they bring them back not all at once, but in quiet, precise ways. A small comment when you're starting to feel confident. A subtle reminder of something you regret, right when you're trying to move forward. A reference to your past self, just enough to make you pause and question whether you've really changed at all. And suddenly, that confidence fades. You hesitate, you shrink, you begin to doubt your own progress. That is exactly the intention. Because this isn't just criticism, it's psychological targeting. They are using your own story against you, turning your past into a weapon designed to keep you stuck. And the reason it's so powerful is because it feels personal. It feels real. After all, these are your words, your experiences, your history. So you start wondering if maybe they're right. Maybe you haven't grown as much as you thought. Maybe you're still that same version of yourself. But here is the truth you need to anchor yourself in. Your past is not your identity. Your mistakes are not your future. Growth means change. And change means you are no longer the person you used to be. The fact that you opened up, that you trusted someone with your truth, was not weakness, it was courage. What they chose to do with that truth reveals who they are, not who you are. The right people will hold your story with care. They will never use your lowest moments to keep you small. So when someone tries to pull you back by reminding you of who you used to be, don't fall into that trap. Stand firmly in who you have become. When every other tactic fails, when the kindness doesn't pull you back, when the pressure from others doesn't shake you, when the small tests don't find a way, a toxic person often does something that feels completely different. They disappear. No messages, no calls, no explanations, just silence. Cold, complete, and intentional. At first, it might feel like relief. Day one, you finally have space. The noise is gone. The tension fades. You tell yourself, maybe this is what you needed all along. But then day two comes, and something shifts. You notice the absence more. Your mind starts to wander. By day 3 or 4, questions begin to creep in. Are they okay? Did I go too far? Was I too harsh? And by the end of the week, that silence that once felt peaceful starts to feel heavy, uncomfortable, almost unbearable. And that is exactly the point. Because this isn't just silence, it's strategy. What you're experiencing is a form of conditioning. Over time, you were trained to associate their presence with emotional relief and their absence with discomfort. So when they withdraw completely, it creates a kind of emotional hunger, not necessarily for them as a person, but for the feeling of resolution, of closure, of calm. And the easiest way to end that discomfort is to reach out, to break the silence, to reopen the door they just closed. That's how they regain control without saying a single word. But here's the truth you need to hold on to. Real peace does not make you anxious. A healthy connection does not leave you questioning yourself in silence. If someone's absence creates a pull so strong that you feel the need to chase them, that is not love, it is a pattern that has been built inside you over time. And breaking that pattern requires one simple, difficult choice. You sit in the silence. You let the discomfort pass. You remember why you stepped away in the first place. Because the moment you stop reacting to their absence is the moment their silence loses its power over you. Now you can see the pattern clearly. The sudden kindness that feels like change, the quiet manipulation through people around you, the small tests that slowly reopen the door, the past turned into a weapon, and the silence that pulls you back. And none of these are random. Every move is intentional. Every shift is designed for one purpose: control. Not love, not growth, not understanding, control. And once you understand that, everything changes. Because what you can see clearly, you can no longer be trapped by. You stop reacting automatically. You stop falling for the timing, the emotion, the illusion. You begin to choose yourself with awareness instead of confusion. So here's what matters now. Protect your peace. Protect your energy. Protect your boundary 7 in the small things. Because your life is not something for someone else to manipulate, and your healing is not something they get to interrupt. You don't need to fight them. You don't need to prove anything. You just need to stay grounded, stay clear, and keep walking forward.